All right, and I think we're ready. Okay, so this first video is going to be breaking down QBs, what I think of each one for the upcoming fantasy drafts. A lot of you have probably already drafted. You've probably already drafted the bulk of all the teams you're going to have this year. Me personally, I like to wait until it's closer to Labor Day, at least the week of Labor Day weekend. I really like Labor Day weekend the best. I have a fantasy draft that I've had going since 2005. We've drafted on Labor Day weekend every year. Just because, Leonard Fournette is a perfect example. You can draft him, and now, I'm sure he'll end up on a team, but you have no idea what kind of situation he's going to go into. And then, unless you got him in the 13th round, I don't know why you drafted him anyway. Just my opinion. So I'm going to break these down into groups based off of mostly auction values, how close they are in auction values. So let's just jump right into it. The first group is Group A, which is only going to have 2 QBs, which is the 2 most elite for this year, I would say, or the 2 that are going to get the most points, obviously Mahomes and Jackson. So I'm going to start with Mahomes. This is kind of the point of this whole video. Don't pay top dollar for Mahomes. Don't do it. Unless you just have a man crush on Mahomes, that's you, but I would not pay top dollar for Mahomes. I like Mahomes a lot. I think he's clearly the future. He's like the future Tom Brady. Who's just more talented. But the gap between Mahomes and the top quarterback in Group B is so insignificant, it's just not worth it to either take him in the first round, the second round, or if you're doing Yahoo drafts, if you've done mock drafts, you've seen him go for like $40. It's ridiculous. I don't even want to pay for Kelsey $40. I like Kelsey a lot, but no. I really, the only positions I'm paying that much for, maybe tight end, but not really. Running back and wideout, those are the only 2. And sometimes wideout is a little bit of a stretch because there's a lot of really good wideouts later in this year's draft. So, again, don't pay top dollar. If you're going to get one of these 2 QBs, get Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson's the next quarterback. And the reason why I would say get Lamar Jackson is because he had over 1,200 rushing yards. He had 7 rushing touchdowns. If he can get about 30 to 50 yards per game rushing, 3 to 4 points added on to his total already. That's nice to have that kind of consistency. So if you really want to get one of the 2, I would get him. Plus, the Ravens have the easiest strength of schedule. So I don't really see him having a ton of picks this year. I really don't see a lot of defenses challenging him. I think it kind of sucks that he has to go up against Pittsburgh twice. But you're going to get the most consistency out of him. And last year, his ceiling was so ridiculous. I think he totaled 426 fantasy points by the end of the year. It's ridiculous. If you're going to go for one of the 2, go for Jackson. So that's Group A. Group B, now this is kind of the point I'm making. You can flip-flop these 2. Probably, I'm going to start with Prescott. So Dak Prescott had only 10 points less than what Mahomes would have had if Mahomes had missed 2 games. So if Mahomes had played 2 games, played the 2 games that he was out for, he probably would have averaged. He would have totaled 395 points for the entire year, basically 400 points. And I think Prescott had 386 or something like that. That's really not that big. That's 14 points? Yeah, it's not that big. So again, it's so insignificant that I personally can't justify, taking Mahomes in the first or second round when you can get Dak in the 5th or even if you see him in the 6th, go for it. I mean, the receiving core is going to be ridiculous this year. You can put any one of those guys in any position, and they're going to flourish. I mean, Amari Cooper is arguably the best route runner, one of the best. Me personally, I like Michael Thomas. I think Michael Thomas is just ridiculous. But Gallup is, making strides every year, even though I think Gallup had the most drops on the team. I think he had 13 drops last year. So that doesn't really bode well. But then you've got CeeDee Lamb, who just looks like a plug and play. So, plus, they lost Travis Frederick. He retired. So that actually could bode well for the passing game. They might have to play from behind a lot if they are not able to establish the run. But they kind of spread, well, at least the last regime with Jason Garrett was able to spread the ball around for running, at least. There's really no one gap that they prefer more. I think maybe between the center and the guards was a little bit more, but not by much. They were pretty good at spreading the ball around as far as rushing. So I'd wait till later and take Prescott over Mahomes. So the next guy in Group B is Russell Wilson, who again had 369 fantasy points. I mean, that's just, it's not that huge of a difference. Basically 370, you're basically 30 points difference. Could be one game, could be 2 games, but it's not that big of a difference. Another thing that bodes well for him is they have a weak defense. The offense is going to carry the team. So again, they're going to have to play from behind, and like you've seen it time and time again, especially when he first faced off with Deshaun Watson. That was a ridiculous game. It was just basically those two trading touchdowns. So, and the potential for running back injuries is another thing. Wilson evades tacklers. He doesn't get hurt, so that's a huge stack in his favor. And also, like I said, the running backs could get hurt. Carson was placed on IR in 2017 and 2019. So again, they might not be able to establish the run. They'll just have to throw it all the time, which is really great for Wilson's potential. So again, I would take Russell Wilson over Pat Mahomes, especially if I can get him in like the 6th round. That way you just stack up on running backs and wideouts. So another one kind of following the same thing, you've got Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson totaled 359 fantasy points. These totals I'm going off are from my Yahoo League that I have with some friends, and they're very similar to DraftKings. So it's not, if you find slightly different totals, it's not that big of a difference. The big problem for Watson is he's sans Hopkins, obviously, which sucks because Hopkins was a beast. Before last year, I would have said that Hopkins was the best wideout in the NFL, because I think the year before he hadn't dropped a single ball. But Michael Thomas's campaign last year was just ridiculous. He's basically the only target to throw to, and he still gets open. Like, he's just nuts. Michael Thomas is someone I'm going to be targeting in basically every draft I have this year too. But a good thing for Watson is he had 7 rushing touchdowns. That's awesome. And he consistently got 30 to 40 rushing yards, which again, like Lamar Jackson, if you can get 3 to 4 extra points every game on top of what they're accumulating in passing, that's fantastic. That's really nice, consistent consistency. That's really nice. The only problem is that with his injuries, I mean, their O-line is better, but I kind of feel like it's the San Andreas fault line where, like, when's the big one? When's the big one going to be? When is it going to be? Like, he seems like a tough dude, but when is it going to be? Like, he's just taken such of a beating. I mean, you can see the difference that Cam Newton is now compared to what he was before. It'd be nice to see Cam Newton do well this year, but he's just not the same runner. But at least right now, Deshaun Watson is, and he's he's a remarkable talent. He reminds me a lot of Russell Wilson. And this next one, I kind of wasn't sure if I wanted to put him in this Group B. Actually, the next two, I wasn't too sure if I wanted to both put them in Group B. I mean, they're not too far off. For auction values, they're probably going to go somewhere in the teens. Most of these quarterbacks are going to go somewhere in the teens. The only one, I think Prescott might go for close to 20 in some of the drafts, I think, just because people are looking at his receiving core and just it's ridiculous. So this next one is Kyler Murray, who had the second most rushing yards with 544 rushing yards, which is awesome. Again, that's really great value. He only had 20 passing touchdowns, and I think his touchdown to interception ratio wasn't that great, but he was a rookie, so we'll kind of let it slide. He looked pretty good. If he can take a step up this year, that would be really nice, because he was already fairly good, and he was pretty nice in fantasy last year for some people. Not super consistent, but he definitely had some really nice games. I think he hit 30 in some games, 30 points. But the problem is he has a rookie tackle. We'll see how that goes. I mean, Josh Jones is a pretty good prospect coming out, so we'll see how that goes. He should take a step up in the second year, regardless of the O-line. He should take a step up this year. And Hopkins. He has DeAndre Hopkins now from the Texans. Everyone knows, like, the trade heard around the world. So that should really bode well for him. He also has a really good receiving core too. I mean, he's got Father Time, Larry Fitzgerald. He's got Christian Kirk. He's got a lot of places to spread the ball around. I didn't look up their tight end. I think it's still Ricky Seals-Jones or something like that. But he has, even if Josh Jones has struggles this year, he still should be able to make a step up, you know, at the very least, like what Josh Allen did from year 1 to year 2. Josh Allen took a step up, but I feel like it just wasn't that big. It wasn't significant enough. So, which is a perfect segue into the last guy in this group, who is Josh Allen. He was another one who I just wasn't sure if I wanted to put him in this group, but again, he's probably going to go for around $10 to $12. And he could fall to like the 6th or 7th round in snake drafts. So I just put him here anyway. The good thing about Josh Allen is he had the most rushing touchdowns, even more than Lamar Jackson, which is pretty amazing. I think he had 2 more than Lamar Jackson, 9 touchdowns, which is amazing. He was 3rd in rush yards for QB, which is fantastic. And another thing that bodes well for him, even though his total fantasy points for the year was not as high as all of these quarterbacks listed before him, the Bills had 36 drops. I mean, that's pretty significant. I think the team that had the most was the Cowboys. The Cowboys had like 43 drops. So to have that many drops, if you're able to, I mean, I think he's pretty good at throwing the ball down the field. I mean, he's got a ridiculous arm, obviously, and hopefully he gets a little bit better with more intermediate throws this year. But if they have Stephon Diggs, obviously, I didn't even put that in here. Oh my God. Oh, I did. Okay. Now they have Stephon Diggs, so that's going to be a huge step up for him. Hopefully that will take the focus off John Brown, and he's going to have Cole Beasley working over the middle. Unfortunately, Beasley was one of the guys that dropped the most passes, so you have the tight end Knox, Beasley, and Singletary. And Singletary dropping balls like that, that's might bode well for some of you Zach Moss stands, so we'll see how that works. But Josh Allen has really good potential this year to continue to step up. Now he's been here for 2 years. Let's see if he gets more comfortable. You've got pretty much all the weapons that he could ask for. Let's see him make that step up. He could be like another Lamar Jackson this year, where if they scheme their offense well, he's athletic enough, or he's just flat out athletic. He can run. He can throw. He can just launch the ball down the field. So let's see how he does this year. Again, going with this theme, you can get him in the later rounds and not take Mahomes. You can get him in like round 6, 7, maybe even round 8. You'd probably be stretching. If you find him in round 8, that'd be great. But don't take Mahomes. You got Mahomes for $33 to $39, or you get Josh Allen for $10 to $12. Don't do it. All right, now getting into Group C. So I didn't realize this first QB in Group C. I didn't realize how good he was until I actually sat down and looked at it. So the first quarterback is Drew Brees, and let me just crush over him for a minute. If he hadn't been injured for I think it was 6 games, his average would have put him over 400 fantasy points for the year. He would have averaged more points than Mahomes. Now, this is just going off with average. Like, of course, Mahomes could have had a game where he threw 50 touchdowns or whatever. But honestly, Brees could have done the same thing. And now, that was when he had just Thomas, and I think Kamara was out for some of those games. Latavius Murray filled in pretty well for Kamara. It was almost seamless. But now they've got Emmanuel Sanders. So now they've got 2 competent outside receivers who also can go inside. They've got Josh Hill, the same old tight end that they have. Just, he is a threat in the red zone. And Jared Cook, who's the more athletic tight end. Got one of the best offensive lines in the league. I don't see the downside here. I mean, this is another reason why I would like to take Michael Thomas, because I think Michael Thomas is going to have a ridiculous year. Only twice this year he scored less than 20 fantasy points in a game. Every other time he was above 20. That's amazing consistency. I would have loved that from my QB last year. Yeah, he missed 6 games, but he had 27 touchdowns. Like that's only 9 less than what Lamar Jackson had, and he had the most touchdowns last year, the most passing touchdowns. Yeah, I'll take that. And you can get him in the later rounds. And if you're doing an auction draft, he's going for like $4. Ridiculous. You're going to pay $33, $39 for Mahomes, where you can get Drew Brees, who has a similarly competent offense. No way. I'm getting angry now for anyone who's thinking about taking Mahomes over Brees. I'm getting upset. I know he's getting older. There's the injury factor. Mahomes also has the injury factor too. He could dislocate his knee again. Hopefully he doesn't. I'd really like to see him like Michael Jordan the whole league. That'd be awesome. But we'll see. This next next QB in Group C, this third group. Actually, I really like, now when you get into Group C, this is where the real value really starts to come into play. So the next one is Matt Ryan. And the only pro I'm going to make for him, look at his value. He had 351 fantasy points last year. Compare that to Mahomes' estimated 395 fantasy points. You just take the average and add it on. That's 89% of what Mahomes got. And what's his cost? His cost is like $7 compared to a favorable Mahomes $33. So you're going to get 89% of the value at 21% of the cost. That's ridiculous. Like that is all the argument I need. And he's not the only QB down here that's like that. That's all the argument I need. I mean, you can make the argument with Breeze, and you're actually getting more value. You're getting over 100% of the value for around the same, like 20% of the cost. Don't take Mahomes. Mahomes is great. I love Mahomes. Don't take him. The only problem is for Matt Ryan, he had the 6th most interceptions in the league last year. Kind of sucks. He does that sometimes. So he'll sort of fill up Rivers' stuff. Not to Rivers' extent, but yeah. But I do like the Falcons' offense this year. I'm excited to see how Hayden Hurst does in that offense. All right, the next QB. I'm over 20 minutes now. I need to speed this up. The next QB is Tom Brady. New team, better O-line, way better receivers, all the tight ends he could possibly want. Seriously, like they have like a third of the league's tight ends. Brady said he's having fun. That's awesome. New England had 37 drops last year compared to Tampa Bay's 23. And who was the receiver that had the most drops last year for the Patriots? Edelman. 11 drops. Yeah, give me Tom Brady. I think a lot of people are looking at him and Godwin and seeing that connection. I feel like I'm maybe in the minority with this. I kind of feel like him and Evans are going to end up being the better connection this year. It's just me. Next guy, there's 2 more guys in this group. So the next guy is Carson Wentz. I was really high on Carson Wentz for most of the offseason. Now that we're getting closer, you've got the O-line injuries, you've got the wide receiver injuries. Rager with the torn labrum, which sucks. I'm starting to come off of him a little bit. That's why I was so excited about like someone like Breeze, who could potentially get over 400 fantasy points this year, and be just as good a value as Mahomes. You can't really blame the drops. I mean, you could. They had 33 drops last year, but like I mentioned before, Dallas had 43. So, I mean, I think the offense was more dysfunctional, obviously, than Philly's offense is more dysfunctional than Dallas. Dallas did start to see some hardship when their tackles were out, and they didn't have Zach Martin. Was that last year? Yeah. So, I mean, Wentz is a remarkable talent. You always have the injury factor. You never know what's going to go on with him. They do have much better receivers this year, even though Rager has a torn labrum. But John Hightower has been making moves in fantasy or in training camp. Deshaun Jackson looks like obviously the thing is every year, as long as he doesn't get hurt, he's going to be fantastic. And Jackson is a receiver that I'm targeting this year in later rounds as a sleeper. I think Jackson is going to be huge this year, and I think Wentz is going to be able to make it through the season. I think they go into the playoffs. I think this will be the first year where he's able to make it through and not get hurt. I'd really like to say that they go take everything this year, but I'm not going to speculate that far into the future. One thing was, though, in the offseason, he made it a point to bulk up. And Wentz, like Lamar Jackson looked last year, Wentz looks just thicker in the neck. He looks like he did put on weight. And he did that to sort of keep himself healthy, able to take hits and shots and not get knocked out of the game. But the same theme with this whole thing, you're getting 80% of the value if you compare him to Mahomes at 12% of the cost, which is around like $4 in an auction draft. Yeah, I mean, if even if he does what he did last year, it's still going to be good enough if you just concentrate on getting top talent, like elite running backs and a top wideout, and then you can find value for tight ends later in the draft. 26 minutes. Okay. Matt Stafford is the last QB in this group. This is another one where if he hadn't been injured, and he usually doesn't get injured, he would have had 383 fantasy points for the whole year, which would have been the fourth highest, which is nonsense to even think that he's going to go for $4, basically the same as Wentz, maybe even less, because people I don't really know anyone that's looking at the Lions. They have the fourth hardest schedule, so they're going to be battling a lot this year. They're going to have to throw. And now that you've got DeAndre Swift, who hopefully he is kind of an answer to their run game. Yeah, I don't, again, 97% of Mahomes' value at 12% of the cost. Like, it's nonsense. Don't take Mahomes. Don't do it. Last group, and then some honorable mentions. And honorable mentions are really like not people that weren't good enough to make a group. It's just they're just more examples of QB you can. They're more examples that you can wait on a QB instead of taking Mahomes early. So Group D, Aaron Rodgers. He's a quarterback with something to prove this year. They took Jordan Love, who hasn't been getting very good reviews in training camp, but people have hiccups. He's still a really good talent. Same value as Wentz and Stafford. Second year under Matt LaFleur, so I think everything is pointing in the right direction for him. I know some people like Alan Lazard. He's not really on my radar, but Devontae Adams is. I feel like Adams could have a Michael Thomas type year, like what he had last year. It's just a really similar situation set up. So yeah, I think Rodgers is going to be quite valuable this year. Two more QBs, Jared Goff. I think he's another one where the O-line played pretty well at the end of last year. They did struggle against better defensive lines, but they've got Cam Akers who could come in and help establish the run, and then that would help the pass. And in an auction draft, he's going for $1. And the snake, you can get him with the 45th pick. That's really low value. I think he was like 293 fantasy points. He had like 3 games in a row where he had like 6 points for the whole game, which really sucks. But they need to get that run. They need to establish that run again. And I feel like Akers is talented enough to be able to do that. And that will help set up the passing game, which Cooper Kupp is another guy that I'm kind of big on this year. I think even Robert Woods has really good value as well. Those are a couple of the receivers that you can wait for later in this draft. So yeah, I think Jared Goff is going to be, I personally, when I'm drafting, if I'm taking Goff for $1, that's really good. It's really good value, especially since I can just use the rest of my capital to sort of get better players. And the last one is Tannehill. I don't know if people are just overlooking Tannehill, but if he had started the season and played as well as he was doing for the latter half of the season, he would have ended up with 366 fantasy points for the year. Yeah, and you can get him for like $1, $2. Yeah, give me that. That's 30 points, 34 points less than what Mahomes is getting, 29 points less than what Mahomes is getting. Yeah, that's amazing value for amazing cost. Just the whole theme of this video. And then the honorable mentions, you can still wait for Cam Newton. Derek Carr looks like he's going to be pretty good. I know they've got Terrell Williams out, but honestly, I think they have, Aguilar, whatever, but Brian Edwards and Henry Ruggs. Henry Ruggs looks like he's going to come in and just get to work. So that's kind of what I'm thinking. He's already a pretty good route runner. I know he's probably going to have to work on his hands with, some of the more elite cornerbacks. Kirk Cousins. I had Kirk Cousins last year in my league. Perfectly fine. He struggled at the beginning of the year. Perfectly fine. Adam Thielen's going to be another guy who I think is going to have a Michael Thomas sort of year. So that's another one to watch out for. Ben Roethlisberger. Like the Steelers were terrible last year because they didn't have Roethlisberger. They've got Roethlisberger coming back. one of the years I drafted Roethlisberger, I won my league because he can have games where he goes off, or he's just good enough to get you consistently 18 to 20 points a game, which is great. It's great consistency. And then Jimmy Garoppolo, I mean, his games are more volatile, so that's one that I kind of just slid in there at the end. But I still think that he has some value, at least as like a backup or something like that. He might have some pretty good value. But anyway, so that is the video of my quarterbacks for this year. Let me know what you think in the comments. I really want to know where you stand on some of my stances. But thanks for watching the video, and I'll see you next time.